Events like this, I love them because it gives us this opportunity to reconnect with all the industry friends that we've had over the years. That's just this for me with my friend who I'm going to introduce next. And this is Mary Nguyen, who is the chef and the founder of the Olive Finch collective here in Denver. I met Mary back in the late 90s when we both worked at Hapa Sushi. Mary was a sushi apprentice at the time, and she worked her way up to become the first female executive sushi chef in North America. Woo! Hell yeah. In 2013, when Mary opened Olive Finch, she changed the way that Denver can experience chef-crafted food. Mary was the visionary behind the idea that a restaurant could be a chef-driven concept while still having casual and fast service style. So really, she paved the way for all the casual chef-driven restaurants that we get to experience in Denver here today, back in 2013. Today, Mary's going to talk about all the barriers, both visible and invisible, that she's faced along the way and through that path that got her to where she is today. So without further ado, please welcome all of us, welcoming Mary, the trailblazer and chef extraordinary, Mary. Yeah. Great.
Hi, everyone. So when I was asked to present my story on tackling visible and invisible barriers, I was really apprehensive about sharing, because I really didn't think my story was worth sharing, because honestly, why would anybody really care? Can you guys hear me? All right. So full transparency, I'm a little nervous, but perhaps my story of how I ended up in this industry may or may not be different as many of you. But what I hope from what you take away from my 10 minutes up here is that no matter the obstacles, passion is what should drive you. And I hope that that rekindles the fire of why you wake up every day to do what you do. So, my start in the restaurant industry isn't a typical one. My mother was pregnant with me when she left Vietnam after the fall of Saigon. So my parents came to the US with literally just the clothes on their backs, hopeful for a different kind of future for their family. And as a first generation Vietnamese American, the expectation was always to get educated and to get a stable, respectable job, because that meant security. And what does security mean? Security means happily ever after, right? And to many people, especially my parents, the food and beverage industry is not stable, nor is it respectable. So I did just that. I followed in my older siblings' footsteps, and I went straight into investment banking and then commodities trading. But what I found was that life wasn't happily ever after. While I had the glass office and I wore the three-piece suits, my happiness wasn't found in making big deals. It was in reading recipes and cooking for friends. I found my happiness serving others and hosting parties where people connected and bonded over food. So I did what I thought any normal person would do. I quit finance, and I decided to dive deep into this restaurant industry so that I can learn how to operate a business so that one day I can do just that. So this time, this was a long time ago, job ads were placed in the newspaper. So, I'm flipping through the classifieds, and I find that my all-time favorite restaurant is hiring for a sous chef. Does anybody remember the Beehive? No? Maybe? So at the time, there were only 2 female-run restaurants in Denver, Terry at Potager and Janice at the Beehive. And to me, the Beehive was just this amazing place that had red brick walls and an open kitchen, and they served salads that had nuts and fruits and cheese. Oh my God, it was so freaking revolutionary. Like literally, this was like 20-some years ago. Do you guys remember this? So anyway, I get dressed up in one of my fancy suits, and I print up my resume on fancy linen paper, and I go to her back door, and I knock on her door, and I'm like, I'm here to apply for the sous chef position. Here's my resume. And she just looks at me, and she smiles. She looks at my resume, and she kind of smirks, and she says I'm not qualified for a sous chef position, but she'll keep my resume. I'm like, okay, and at this time I had no idea, right? Like, what's the hierarchy of in a kitchen? Like, what's a sous chef? What are the positions on a line? I had no idea. So I walk away, I'm super deflated, I'm really disappointed, but I don't let that get in my way. I continue my search. But a couple months later, she gives me a call, and she says, Mary, I would really love for you to come in and apply for a position. I want you to stage. I'm like, okay, what's stage? Okay, she talks about it. In my pantry. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so excited. I hang up the phone and I tell my girlfriends, Janice from the Beehive just offered me a position to put away her groceries. That was literally what I knew about the restaurant industry at that time. So I was fortunate enough to be hired also by the Hapa Group as a sushi chef apprentice, and I wanted to learn about coffee, so I got a job at Starbucks. So I did this for about a year. I would wake up, I'd work the morning shift at Starbucks, I'd work at Hapa for the lunch shift, and then I'd work at the Beehive at night. And I did that every day for a little bit over a year. What do you think my parents thought? You think they approved? Well, if they had known, they would not have approved. I actually never told them. I didn't tell them that I quit finance to go into the hospitality industry until I opened up my first restaurant. But more about that later. So anyway, a year of working from 4 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, I'm given the opportunity to move into a leadership role, and I focus on that. And so I spend more time at Hapa, and I end up moving up the ranks. So for any of you, does anybody know about sushi and about the myths, the Japanese myths about female sushi chefs? Well, there are a lot of them, and they still exist today. But the makeup that we wear affects the fish. The perfume that we wear, because all women wear perfume, in case you didn't know that, affects the fish. Our hands are so small that we can't make sushi. And lastly, we menstruate. Oh, not lastly, there's another one. We menstruate. And so our emotions cannot handle just the high volume that a sushi chef has to be able to produce. And then lastly, our body temperatures, women, just FYI, they're warmer than a man's. So when we touch the fish, we ruin the flavor of the fish. So the next time you're in your sushi restaurant, take a look at all those men behind that sushi bar. Notice if there are any women, because these myths still exist today. So anyway, for me, this was 20 years ago. So you can imagine the discrimination that I faced. The sexual advances, the sexual jokes. I had coworkers threatening me with knives, keying my car. I had male supervisors ask, "Are you on your period?" Because I was trying to hold somebody accountable. So anyway, I stuck it out. And I left Hapa to open up Parallel 17, and when I did, I was the only female sushi chef in North America. So I opened P17 in 2005, and I finally told my parents. And P17 was really my homage to Vietnamese cuisine. I really wanted to show the beauty of the food and all its complexity in an environment that represented that. Here you didn't find the waving cat and all the bamboo and the dirty walls and the menus that had huge items that just homogenized and cheapened Asian cuisine. It was really the first of its kind. It was a very high-end French-Vietnamese restaurant that turned into a lounge after dinner service and really revitalized Restaurant Row. And in 2011, I opened Street Kitchen, a restaurant that showcased the street foods of Asia. And it was during this time that I thought about having a family, because I'm a woman and I wanted to have a family. And like any modern woman who is told that you can have it all, I set out to do just that. But believe it or not, slaving away on a line, morning to night, my biological clock was ticking. Actually, it had expired. And so I had to make some major changes to my lifestyle to be able to go on a journey to find and have a family. So one of the things that I had to change in my lifestyle was something that was really difficult, and that was my diet. I had to be really intentional about what I ate. And that was really difficult because we all know what that's like, right? At the end of the day, when we're having our meal, we are sitting in the corner on a milk crate, over a counter, over a sink, eating whatever we can find. I love Taco Bell, that's what I do, or fast food, whatever it is. We're not looking for chef-driven, scratch-made food because it's midnight, right? No one's serving it because we just served it to everybody else. But I had a really hard time with that. When I could find chef-driven, scratch-made food, it was not only cost prohibitive, but it was time prohibitive. So what did I do? I decided that I was gonna open up a restaurant that was accessible and that you shouldn't have to have a lot of money or a lot of time to eat well. So I set out to open up a restaurant that would serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner in an environment that served chef-driven, scratch-made food in the back of house, but had a casual front of house counter experience. And this was in 2012, and everyone I told said, don't do it. What are you trying to do? Why would you ever open up a fast food restaurant? But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make great food accessible, because it's not. So I didn't listen to any of the voices that told me that it was a bad idea, that Denver wasn't ready. I wanted to be able to make great food accessible, and if it's not for everybody else, then maybe it's gotta be just for me. So Olive Finch really, truly became a passion project. So on December 3rd, 2013, we opened our doors. We opened our doors, surprisingly, to a line out the door. And in 2014, we were awarded Best New Restaurant by all the major publications, which was the first time that any casual counter-style restaurant had not just been nominated, but even won. And I was finally pregnant with twins. So, smooth sailing? Unfortunately, no. I was working way too much, and I was also pregnant with twins. And I was in and out of the hospital. And as much as the doctors told me, you need to slow down, you need to stop, you need to change your life, I just couldn't do that. So I found myself in the hospital for 3 months on bed rest. 3 months, mandatory bed rest in the hospital so that these babies inside of me can grow. And at that time, I started to realize that I needed to make some changes. So I made the difficult decision of closing Street Kitchen. And so then the twins were born. And they were grossly premature. We almost lost one of them. And so I spent another 3 months in the hospital. And at this point, okay, I need to make some bigger changes, right? So I decided to put in motion steps to close P17 and expand Olive Finch. So twins get healthy. 2017, we open up Cherry Creek. All right, so what do you think now? All right, so we opened Cherry Creek in 2017. 2 months into the opening, the bottom drops out. One of my twins is diagnosed with stage 5 cancer. Three months later, the other one's in a full body cast because of reconstructive surgery. So what do I do? What would you do? I doubled down. That's what I did. 2018, we opened up our 3rd location. Woo! That's our wholesale facility. 2019, we launched a line of grab-and-go products. 2020, what happened then? Well, that was COVID, and that didn't just happen to me. That happened to every single one of you, and we all know the visible barriers that created. And in 2022, we moved our production facility from a 6,000 facility to a 13,000 square facility. And in 2023, we launched Little Finch, which is a new concept. And now it's 2024, and we've got a thriving wholesale business with products in the airport, hospitals, and grocery stores. We have plans for more Little Finches and Olive Finches, and we've created a management company to help others turn those passions into reality. And I'm surrounded by a great team of people who are truly passionate about this industry, who have my shared vision of our future. So the road here clearly has not been easy. In fact, it feels like there have been barriers that were intentionally placed in my way to say, quit, bow out, take the easier way out. But I didn't. Because like all things in life, hard times pass, and you truly cannot appreciate the good without experiencing the bad. So if you can take anything away from my story, take away that both invisible and visible barriers are going to be placed in your life and in your work. That's inevitable. But the only thing you can control is how you respond to them. The response that you have to the adversity that will determine whether or not you're going to be able to achieve your goals. find the why. Because if you can find the why behind what you're doing, that will keep you moving forward, and let that passion drive how you handle what life throws at you. It's truly what motivates me every day as I encounter small, large, invisible, and visible barriers. And lastly, this industry that we are all in is respectable. And it's important to me to be a part of the evolution of this industry and to help it become a respectable and equitable career path where we as a company are paving the way for everyone passionate about this industry. Find a path that offers stability, security, work-life balance, and growth. Thank you.